This video is one that I did with a Mississippian culture archaeologist. He shows me his brand new research that you really can't find anywhere else that shows new connections between the Mesoamerican people like the Mayans and the Mississippian cultures in North America. But today we're going to be talking about unpublished research of this rattlesnake disk that was found at a field in the early 1900s and how this archaeologist's research, in my opinion, proves the connection between Mesoamerica and the Mississippian cultures. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I know that if you like my channel, you're going to enjoy this as well.
I have been at the University of Missouri working on my PhD and all the research and everything going on close to 10 years now. I would like to say first and foremost that the link between Mesoamerica and the Southeast has been a point of contention amongst anthropologists and pretty much historians, archaeologists, everybody in between, for a very long time. All right. This goes way back, all the way to the 1920s, 1930s. And people have been trying to find this holy grail for a very long time, trying to connect these two civilizations. I'm not claiming in this particular video anything more than I think the evidence has reached the point where you can't really ignore it any longer, that the connections between Mesoamerica, not the Aztec, but the Maya before and these other cultures that existed in the area of the Yucatan. There's a lot of evidence here that before I ever came along to make these arguments, everything from the aspect of seeing language similarities between the Natchez and some Mesoamerican cultures. That's a big example. Another one is the aspect of finding these mounds, dotting the map all the way down into Mexico, all the way down to the area of the Yucatan Peninsula. There's all kinds of various different aspects of this, and the traditional belief systems of the Southeast strike a startling similarity, all right, between what we see there. The motifs there are very similar to what we see down south. Now, does that say that one is the other? No. Does that say they're one culture? No. But what it is saying that perhaps these two groups were trading flour for sugar at one time or another. Maybe they were in at least connective. There's some kind of connectivity where they're trading information, culture, whatever else between the two of them. There is a lot of similarity again between what we see as far as the Moundville, the mound culture, all right, as far as their motifs, their symbols, whatever else, and what we see also in Mesoamerica, dating back to the time frame of the Mayans, not necessarily Aztecs, but all further back. All right, we're going to need to go all the way back to roughly around the turn of the first century when we talk about these kinds of things, and maybe a little forward from there. Which is the problem, because mound culture, as far as Mississippian culture, seems to come about around 600 AD. All right. So we have a gap between the Mayan cultures that they're happening. All right. We talk about Teotihuacan. We're talking about all the various different locations down the Yucatan, Ecuador, that kind of thing. We have a little bit of a gap there between the two. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Mayans still exist to this very day. The Mayan culture didn't go away. All right. It's still there. All right. Even though the Aztecs ended up their main city being Mexico City in Tenochtitlan, we kind of make the assumption that one replaced the other. No, not really. No, the Mayans were still there in the Yucatan the entire time. All right.
And Mexico is a federalist state, just like the United States. So Mexico, the full name is the United States of Mexico. They have 33 states, I think, and two of them, Yucatan and Quintana Roo, which are on the Yucatan Peninsula, they are majority Mayan. I mean, if you go to Medina, which I haven't, but it's a city in Yucatan, rather large city. It's a Mayan city.
Yes.
But continue, please.
I'm just pointing out the fact that the Mayans never went away. Okay, they never disappeared. I'm going to set that stage to take it to the next step here. All right, when we look at a lot of the various different belief systems of Mesoamerica, I'm talking about overall belief systems. All right, we see a lot of motifs that we think of, right? For example, calendar discs is probably the most important one we hear about. I'm sure everyone's seen the gigantic, massive calendar disc with the skull in the center, the tongue hanging out, that you see in Mexico City. This is probably the most famous calendar disc, but you'll find these all across Mesoamerica and the calendrical systems of Mesoamerica. That's the one, yes, please. That specific one. We find that same calendrical system, which is very similar between what we saw with the Mayans and Aztecs. They're all very similar systems overall. So it looks like the Aztecs, for the most part, stole a lot of their ideas, their views and beliefs, right, from the Mesoamerican culture of the Mayans earlier. But I'm open to that argument. I'm absolutely open
Okay.
to it. I would say, but I know definitely that the Mayan calendar system, clinical system of the Mayans, all right, that you see in the various different locations across Yucatan is very, very similar to the one you see amongst the Aztec. All right.
And there's archaeological evidence of the Mayan one existing prior
We
to the
have
Mayans?
archaeological evidence of it dating all the way back to well before the first century. All right. So
Okay.
there's that.
That is evidence enough. I mean, the Aztecs don't come out till what, 1200s as a distinct
Roughly, yes.
culture?
12,
Right,
12 to 1400 is when we start seeing the rise of their civilization. Peak of their civilization will coincide within 100 years of whenever you have Spanish showed up, the conquistadors, all right? And of course,
right.
the fall of that civilization happens very similar because of the diseases and all that happened there as well.
Yeah, we talk
Now,
about that.
I but getting back to what I was saying originally, all right. When my focus is in the southeast of the United States, the southeastern tribes. We're talking
Mhm.
about the Cherokee, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, the Natchez, the Shawnee, Pawnee, stuff like that. These groups, okay, that's my focus. And the mounds of the southeast are probably one of the more interesting aspects of archaeology. A lot of people don't really understand exactly the system, what was going on here, what the mounds are really for. They don't really understand. Archaeology has been arguing about these things for a long time, and we used to have these mounds that were dotted all over the landscape, all along the Mississippi River and everywhere else in between, all over the southeast. All right, and they were part of the Mississippian southeast ceremonial culture. All right, this mountain culture.
And a lot of them were torn down, right?
Oh, yes, due to farming and the building of St. Louis. There were probably just as many mounds on the western side of the river as there were on the eastern side of the river at one time, and most
Right.
all that was torn down. Yeah.
Yeah, real unfortunate. There are many saved in Cahokia, but they were essentially, I mean, this entire area we're looking at, look, I mean, it's like half the United States. There's evidence of these, and they would have been pervasive before, but I mean, they were mounds of dirt. They were torn down, and people used the dirt. And unfortunately, there was also in many of those mounds, some of them would have just been for houses, but in some of the more some of the larger ones, there was probably a lot of important archaeological history there that could have told us a lot about the culture, but we
Uh,
really
at,
don't know a whole lot.
at the very least, and when we talk about Mississippian culture, we have to understand that, or at least the Southeast Ceremonial Complex, or we talk about this culture, we were talking about something that was interconnected, not just by mounds. All right, they had symbols, they had various different motifs, they had a shared religious system that seemed to permeate this entire group of here of a culture that was interchanging and trading whatever else between each other all through between 600 AD to 12 to 1300 AD. All right. All throughout. So we're talking about between 700, 800 years here, where this entire area of culture was trading with each other over an area as big as from Texas all the way out to the East Coast. All right. Down south, far south is Florida, and far north is Ohio. All right. If not Michigan to some extent, too. We're talking about a massive area. And some of the things we found, like prismatic blades, talking about obsidian, things like that, that we've sourced, we found some of these sources for obsidian going all the way out to the Rockies. Okay. So we're talking about a massive trade connection between these groups, right?
Yeah. And
Um,
it could be trade to a third party and then maybe a fourth party as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. It could have been one of those things like when we talk about the Silk Road in Asia, where things get moved along the Silk Road, all right, where it's not like you're moving something to 1,000 miles that direction. It just passed hands between
Right.
places, but in between. But
But I mean, it does show a continuous link. I mean, this is how the Silk Road was as well.
yes, absolutely. And that is I'm trying to set the stage a bit for the research I do. More specifically, when we think about it from this perspective and the connection of religious beliefs and motifs and symbols and everything going with it, we might also try to find something really important, which is like a calendrical system, a calendar system that these people might have had that was a shared one as well. And that was my task, is to try to figure out what that calendar system was. All right. Because and the cool thing about calendar systems is this: if you know anything about them, any kind of calendar system that exists out there is going to give you a buttload of information about the culture too. So if you get your hands on that calendar, if you're able to work out exactly what that calendar is for a given culture, then you're able to get all kinds of information about the culture. Look at our own calendar, for example. Look at the zodiac, all right? All the aspects of those calendrical systems give us so much information about our own culture when you think about it. So if I'm able to get my hands on that, in relation to Mississippian culture, SECC, all right, I can learn a lot about their culture. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that disc there is called the Rattlesnake Disk. It's actually the symbol of Alabama. One of the things that I talk about, maintain, is that is not just a regular disc. That is a calendar disc, also very similar to what you see in Mesoamerica. And that is the main focus of my research, showing how this disc and the symbols on it are directly related to what you see in Mesoamerica and their calendar discs, if that
Okay.
makes any sense.
Right. And the mound builder culture would be the assumption then based on the current archaeological material record would be like that the mound builders are an extension of the Mayans.
Some people made the argument. I would make the argument that there is a continuation of information that made its way into the southeast Mississippian culture. All right,
Right.
and again, it's not to say they weren't talking to each other, because they were, all right, during this time frame.
Right.
But there were Mayans that were probably coming up the Gulf of Mexico into the southeastern areas, right, and worked their way up the Mississippi River, all right, and more than likely had dealt with and connected with a variety of different cultures there as well, all right. That's the idea behind what's going on here. And it's not to say that one is like they all moved to the southeast. Some of them might have, all right. Some of them might actually have moved to the southeast to for a variety of reasons. But for the most part, these motifs, these ideas, this ideology, this iconography moved itself in that area, all right, because they adopted it. Probably with the movement of corn would be my argument, that whenever corn got introduced into the southeast, came with that corn was all the prayers you had to make would go along with the corn, all the
Right.
discussion, the religious symbolisms that came with the corn, whatever else, all that came with it. All right, when they adopted that the top adopted maize.
Right. So and this is true of a lot of the Americas, right? Like even in Connecticut, the Eastern Algonquin people that are in New England, I mean, they use the three sisters, beans, corn, and squash, and they
Yeah.
have similar legends of them, even though we know they originate in Mexico. So there has to be, I mean, that's direct evidence
Yeah.
of cultural diffusion into this area as far north as Canada.
And again, the argument from most of archaeology and cultural anthropology as of right now is that it's made its way through the Southwest first and then made its way eastward. All right, I would argue that that's probably not true. More than likely, it made its way up the coast of Mexico into the Gulf of Mexico, whatever else, all the way up to through the Mississippi River and made its way up north that way. And that's how corn got disseminated. I believe that what you're looking here as far as that disc, right? That's a calendar disc, very similar to what you see in with the Mesoamerican variations of the same thing. All right, it's a cosmogram specifically. This is an image of a set of constellations that you see in the night sky, and the reason why they put these constellations in this position on the disk is because they're trying to relate a specific date, and that date is Busk, or more importantly, the summer solstice. The reason they do this is the summer solstice is one of the most important days because that's the moment they decide to like have the first what they call the green corn ceremony, where they do
Yeah.
the first harvest, right, amongst a lot of the southeastern tribes, right, and then they try to do a second harvest. The cool thing about talking about corn is that corn, if you know anything about it, you have to have 120 frost-free days to be able to get it in the ground and get it up. So you had to have a really good calendar to be able to plant and raise corn if you want two crops of it. So this calendrical system that you have in front of you here, this disc, all right, gives you that information, and I can show you how.
Okay. So, and this would be an example of a time. Dude, I love this. We're gonna do this again. We're gonna do this again soon. So the Maya are called the people of the corn, right? And then you
Yeah,
have this calendar, or the implication of this calendar on the rattlesnake disc, and it's like the calendar is then tied to the cultivation of corn, which itself comes with which its own benefits. But then you also have to adopt the culture of that because you need to adopt the culture of the calendar and the rituals associated with it in order to successfully cultivate corn. Am I getting that right?
correct, correct.
Fantastic. Please keep
Okay.
going.
That just basically gives you information about when you talk about Mississippi culture. You see the middle Mississippian, all the Caddo, lower Mississippian. That whole area there is that all the spots you're seeing there on the right side of the screen. That covers all
Mhm.
Mississippian culture. All right, that's what the area we're talking about. So we're talking about half the United States. If you go to
Yeah.
the next
And
one, go
so
ahead.
they're building mounds from northern Florida up until like the Great Lakes in
Yes.
Wisconsin.
That itself is the disc. That's the disc itself. It's got three rings on the opposite side of it. I can go a little bit of that in a minute. On the front, you have a hand and eye motif in the center. The eye and hand motif in the center. It basically looks like a hand or a mouth in the center, or we call the OG mouth. And you have
Yeah.
two snakes, rattlesnakes, that are tied together and laid in a circular pattern around the outside of that hand, and then you had 17 bifurcations or notches on the outside of the disc itself. All right. All these are cultural. All these are Mississippi culture iconography.
So where was this found?
This is found in around Moundville, Alabama, not too far from Tuscaloosa. Excuse me, not too far from the Black River location, the Moundville location of Alabama.
Got
Um, yeah, you will. Those are Mississippian calendar discs. There, those are the same type of discs that I'm talking about that you find in Mesoamerica, and you'll find the same kind of disc in. You'll find very similar discs in Mississippian culture, is what I'm saying. Those are discs that were found in Mississippian culture. You have the OG mouth. You have the disc that's up to the left there on you. You have two snakes as well, doing this very similar kind of motif, and you have on the right hand side another one that looks like you have two hands laid out with eyes in the hands as well. And in the center, you have the best way I could put it is a pole. All right, what we refer to
Yeah.
as the axis mundi, or the center of the universe. All right, where the two heads, which look very Mesoamerican, by the way, I like to point out. All right, and you have three stripes that are centered on the pole. The three stripe pole is also an important iconography motif of Mississippi culture, and as well one that we see in Mesoamerica. Remember the three stripes I pointed out to you on the back of the disc that when I first, okay, same concept, all right. And this center is what they're trying to relate on the disc. Now, where this, if you keep going, I'll get in specifically what that means. All right. Here you have the various images on the rattlesnake disc. The stone disc is roughly about an inch thick and a foot wide. Two different types of rattlesnakes there. If you notice that the markings are different, one has markings that are more like chevrons, and the other ones have more markings more like stair steps. Okay, there's a reason for this. The two snakes could be representative of the hero twins from the Popol Vuh. Quetzalcoatl and Exaquatl are the hero twins from the Popol Vuh. The way they're representative is a snake or a flying serpent.
So these are the serpents, if I'm remembering correctly, that are on the main Mayan site.
Are you talking about
Chichen Itza?
Chichen Itza? Yeah.
So there's in the ball game court, in the physical ball
I-shaped
game
ball
court.
Yeah.
Right. Then at the edge, on each side of the ball game court, there are two serpent heads. Are
Yes.
those serpents?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
That's amazing.
You'll
I'm
also
so
find
excited.
a lot of two serpent iconography amongst the Aztecs and Mayans both, all right, where they have going in opposite directions. I'm just
Right.
pointing out the similarity here as well. All right. That is
God damn.
obvious. Okay.
Oh my God, dude. This is incredible. This is
Okay.
absolutely incredible.
So you have this going on. You have the OG mouth in the center. You have the hand-eye motif. You have at the end, you'll notice something kind of interesting. The tips of their tails, those look like corn kernels. Okay. Why is that
They sure
important?
do.
Because the god of corn, as far as the Mesoamericans are concerned, is Quetzalcoatl. He's the god of corn. All right. He's the flying feathered serpent is the god of corn. All right.
And the Maya are the people of the corn.
Yeah, literally.
It's as much as we're the people of the eagle as Americans. But
yeah. I mean, these are important symbols as far as the Mesoamerican is concerned. One of the things that you would find interesting about the disc itself, the disc is actually not a perfect circle, and the symbols in the center of it are off by roughly 9 degrees for some reason or other. All right, they've been skewed a little bit by 9 degrees. Okay, and that has been a kind of a question for a while now. Maybe it was just the artist screwed up, whatever else. You know what I mean? Didn't do it right for some reason or other. And I have an explanation perhaps of why that actually happened. All right. And finally, you have the eye surrounds that are around the snake's eyes that denotes deity. So we know full well that we're looking at deities here. We know full well these are flying serpents, all right, for whatever reason or other. And these are being laid out. And I'm going to show you specifically what's going on with that. All right, we have the same hand and eye motif, all right? We have the same OG mouth. We have the same symbols we find all over the place and within Mississippian culture of the hands and eye. This is a real common set of symbols we see. And also you'll see in amongst a lot of these symbols with the hands and eyes, all right? They're always connected with a certain amount of hands and eyes in a circular pattern, all right? That's always going counterclockwise for some reason or other. All right. It's always moving counterclockwise. These are the general motifs we see amongst Mississippian culture. We have the petuloid, which is the flower motif, all right, in the center. Flowery war, we talk about amongst the Aztecs, all right, the flowery war, which was the holy place, the flowery place, right? It's part of like the beautiful death of the Aztecs. We have the same kind of petuloid motif of flowers going on. We have the swastika, or also other terms for it, or as well, it's a symbol of what we believe is probably representative of the
rotation of the Big Dipper around
the
the North
rotation
Star.
of the Big Dipper, but there's a specific name. There's a specific name for the constellation. It's missing me right now for some reason or other. We have the bilobed axe on top of the head of the or number 3. That's also a very common one with the eye surround over his eye. We have the OG mouth. We have the striped pole, and we have the hand in the center. And finally, we have the 4. We have 4 different snake flying serpents, literal flying serpents with corn tails going around in a counterclockwise pattern. All right, it probably represents the axis mundi, or the center of the universe, when we get around to it. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The Big Dipper, all right, that more than likely the swastika pattern, all right, is more than likely the Big Dipper moving through the seasons as it goes around spring, summer, fall, winter, as it moves around. All right. And if you go outside any given night, you can see that dipper moving in a counterclockwise fashion as it moves around, all right, every single solitary night. And what my argument here is that the center of the North Star is probably what you're seeing in the center of that hand, and what the entire thing you're being represented in front of you is this entire thing is the semipolar constellations that you see in the night sky. Here you have the this is a representation of their belief system. The Milky Way is the starry path that leads to going to the underworld, going to the spirit world. You have to like pass through a door which is controlled by a trickster spirit. The trickster spirit, I'm pretty sure for that particular culture, is the raccoon, and he sits at the top of the tree with the Axis Mundi. All right, and you have the world tree in the center, which points directly to the North Star. We have the Pawnee, we have the Natchez, we have a variety, the Omaha culture. All of them represent their sacred pole when they do these kind of rituals, right? For their busk, they point it directly at the North Star whenever they do it. All right. So I would argue they're the inheritors of the Mississippian culture. I would argue that's the representation that you're seeing there. Okay. If that makes any sense. All of that slide is about is to show that you have good representative evidence, all right, that Native American cultures were keeping track of stars. All right. We see this amongst the Pawnee, definitely, where they had entire layer, they had entire bearskin laid out where it had all the various different star constellations laid out for them. They kept track of all the stars for whatever reason or other. I would argue they're doing it for calendrical systems. And this is the bighorn medicine wheel. And this is a good example of how they kept track of locations of stars in the night sky by using this type of methodology. And we see this all over, not just Southeastern culture. We see the Southwestern culture. We see it all over North America where they use this type of system. This is where it gets really kind of weird. All right. Because as I mentioned before, the symbols seem to be off, right? They're not dead center for some reason. But if you look at the specific notches on the outside, it's obvious if the one on the right shows the exact locations of where those notches are and how they relate to the disc, and they're perfect alignment with each other. Absolutely perfect. There's no two ways around. So anything as far as the symbols on that disc that was put on there was done intentionally. All right. There's no doubt in my mind about that. All right. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. That's how perfect that actually was. Now, this will take a real quick brief. Everyone should understand the concept of how the solstices work. You have two solstices. You have summer solstice, winter solstice, June 20th to 22nd, and then in the winter you have like December 20th, 22nd. These are the shortest and longest days of the year. All right, is what we're talking about. The busk ceremony for a lot of these cultures in the Southeast happen on the summer solstice. All right. And we're talking about whether talking about the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, whatever else, that they all focus around that time frame. My assumption is that this is a holdover from Mississippi culture from before. Okay. And
Right.
that's the focus, and how they kept track of this was through the aspects of checking the stars. All right. So they can know
Right.
what time frame of the year they're in to calculate the exact day when that solstice is. And they use the disc for that purpose.
And when you say they, I mean, is there any evidence of this being like I assume there was a esoteric, like hidden knowledge priest class that controlled this, or maybe not hidden, but they're like not everybody knows how to do this, right? This is a specialized thing.
I would argue that they probably bundled the disc magically, all right, and kept it away from everybody, all right, because that's pretty common for what they would do as far as tradition, all right. And yeah,
Right.
there would be a shamanic class of individuals whose job it was to keep track of these kinds of things. This is my interpretation of the disc. Notice that the symbols are all moving in a counterclockwise fashion, exactly like you have with the semipolar stars in the northern hemisphere. The are all moving the directions that they're moving. Also, you have the calumet or pipe moving in one set of the symbols, and you have a V symbol working in the other one, or basically like a chevron. I think that the pipe ones are the Big Dipper, and I believe the chevron ones are the ones from Cassiopeia. And
Cool.
whenever you have this going on, you also have you have them moving in a direction in such a way that they're overlapping each other. If you also count the number of symbols between the various two different snakes, they'll come up to roughly 18. And the reason for this is because there's the exact same amount of months in this system with 20 days, 4 weeks of 5 that are very similar. It's exactly the same thing as you see within the within the Mesoamerican calendar down in Mexico and the Yucatan, whatever else. It's almost exactly the same. And how they calculate it is almost exactly the same as well, because they calculate down there by using the summer solstice the same way as they're calculating in this one, using the same one. If you draw a line between the center eye of that hand directly to the eye up to the on the one on the right, the eye on the right, it comes out to a perfect 60-degree angle, which is exact position that you see the sun rise on the summer solstice. All right. But look, yeah, it's almost exactly perfect. Now,
Oh man,
I'm not even done. I'm not even close. Check this out.
I know.
The hand in the center, all right, is exactly 9 degrees off dead center, all right, from the center of the position. There's a reason for this, because if you know how the Earth and the Sun works in regards to how the Earth tilts on its wobble, all right, where the position of the North Star was in between 9 to 14 degrees off of that position of due north, up where the position north will be. So from that alone, we'd expect it have to be from that position where the center of that eye would be at, all right, to the position in the center of the disc. It's 9 degrees off. So that tells approximately when the thing was actually created, roughly around 1200 AD. Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Now check this out. You see the tongues, the position of the tongues on the disc there. They have a position on the top and the bottom, right? This is the semipolar stars. These are the stars in the north sky. This is where they have the Little Dipper, the Big Dipper, Cassiopeia. If you notice the blue dot that's on the left-hand side there, what star is that?
The left-hand side?
The left-hand side. That would be you have one, it was Vega, and the other one is
on the right side, Vega.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You have Vega on this side, all right, there. And then you have man, this is missing me for some reason the other day.
The resolution's low on this.
The resolution is rather low. Anyway, the positions of these two stars are the two brightest stars in the night sky beside the North Star. All right. They line up perfectly with the positions of where the tongues hit on the disc.
Capella? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Capella. Yes, thank you. Capella. Okay. Yeah, they line up perfectly for the positions of where the tongues end at on the disc. If you put the disc in the same position as this, they line up perfectly. All right. So literally, when you go back to the disc and see where the tongue's positions are at, they fall exactly in the same position.
Gosh, man, you are killing me here. You are killing me. So you're talking about this disc with the lines. Is there a better illustration of this?
Yeah, right there. You see the ends of the tongues here and there, the top and the bottom. All right. They line up perfectly to the positions of where you'd see Vega and the other star as well.
In uncanny alignment. Good Lord.
And it shows, it's all there. I mean, without any doubt in my mind whatsoever, they line up perfectly with all these constellations exactly where they're supposed to be at. This is a calendar disc. This is 100% a calendar disc. This is what this is. My God. So we have a Mississippian culture calendar disc that's exactly the same as the calendar disc that you have from Mesoamerican culture. All right. That's set up exactly the same way, the same amount of months and years, everything else, right? The connection between Mississippian culture and Mesoamerican culture is locked. There's no doubt. I mean, if you weren't convinced by the corn, if you weren't convinced by the aspect of the language between the Natchez and other languages down, if you weren't convinced by this itself, all right. And here's the funny part. People thought this thing was a glorified ashtray. Literally, they thought it was a glorified ashtray version of a paint palette going on like over 100 years before this research came along. Now we have all these discs that we look at and start trying to figure out all the calendrical aspects of the culture. okay, and start understanding what's going on here, right? And try to grasp what they were actually, the symbols, what they may have meant, why they use certain symbols for various different things, and match that up to match the Mississippian culture up to Mesoamerican culture, and go, okay, what is actually going on here? All right, what are they trying to relate with these symbols? Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Okay, that's Moundville. That's the location where this disc was found. All right. And the
Alabama.
same thing I mentioned about the fact of the 60-degree angle. If you look at those mounds, you'll see an exact, yeah. And you see
Come
this
on,
all
man.
throughout Mississippian culture. You see this all throughout Mesoamerican culture. As a matter of fact, if you talk about Teotihuacan, specifically Teotihuacan, where the pyramid of the sun, the pyramid of the moon, all that kind of stuff, and how they're aligned with each other, all right? You'll see the exact same thing that I'm talking about, all right? Where you have that the same angles are being used, all right, to mark exactly when the summer solstice hit, all right, using the same kind of concept.
Oh my
There it is.
gosh.
That's it in a nutshell. If you go over I think one more, it talks about the busk ceremony a little bit.
Dude, I swear to God, I'm acting like a black person experiencing a magic show. Have you ever seen those videos? Sorry, continue.
All right, green corn celebration, busk. This is basically they still celebrate to this very day. They still they still talk about the green corn ceremony. They still do this thing about the first fruits. They always hold on the summer solstice. They always do this, no matter what culture we're talking about in the southeast.
And there's the story and the ritual associated with the green corn ceremony is I forget the specifics. Maybe that's the blue corn ceremony I'm thinking of, but I think that it's like it has this societal purpose of having people enact out this story, and it really would it would pressure you to know to grow corn the right way innately
Yes.
based on the way the story is told.
Yeah. It's
We don't
funny.
need to get into the specifics of that, but that is a thing, unless you want to.
It's funny. I was sitting in a class, one of my first years of grad school, and I had a professor tell me that the reason why Quetzalcoatl is associated with corn is because the feathered serpent is those are supposed to be corn leaves off the side of his neck. All right, and to some extent that could be correct. But I'm from southeast Missouri, down in the farming area. Okay, I grew up as a farmer. All right, I grew up in that kind of area. And the one thing I know for certain, that if you have a cornfield, you can almost guarantee there's going to be one thing in that cornfield, and that's going to be snakes. All right, that's just, yeah. So you think
Okay.
about what snakes represent in that aspect of what we're talking about. Snakes represent aspects of them feeding, getting rid of the varmints, the getting rid of the various different things that are in that field that's going to eat your corn.
And then there's the practical effect of worshiping serpents as a sacred animal. You don't kill them.
Exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
god. Oh my god.
Yeah. So you have it. Okay, now you have an entire connectivity of all the things that are. Yeah, you see where I'm going with this now. You have this entire connectivity of all where this all comes from, as far as why they're worshipped, what's going on, the whole nine yards, right? And why, yeah, all of it,
This is the
all in
greatest
one
day of
shot.
my life, Cam. This is the greatest day of my life right now.
Can I blow your mind with one last slide?
Dude, I don't know if I can handle it. I really don't
Okay,
know.
this is the last slide. That's Quetzalcoatl. Okay,
Okay.
and you look at his tail. What do you see? That
That's
came
the
from
corn, right?
Mesoamerica. Look at it. No, you
Oh,
look at the tail of Quetzalcoatl in green. Look at his tail. Now that is what his tail looked like. Now look at the tail on the disc.
oh my god. Oh my
Do you have any
god.
doubt now?
Oh no,
That
dude.
the exact symbol that is used for Quetzalcoatl and his tail, all right, is the exact same symbol. Quetzalcoatl came from Mesoamerica. That disc came from Alabama. That is the same snake. That is the same snake.
What?
How this
Why are
got missed by archaeologists going on 100 years, I can't explain to you, and I don't know how.
Wait, who knows about this? I assume you've noticed this, but right here you see the steps, right? And they're the similar to the Big Dipper.
Yes.
Was that the implication?
Yeah.
But they also remind me of the steps on the physical steps on Chichen Itza.
They also look like the same pyramid you see at the Pyramid of the Sun, Pyramid of the Moon, this pyramid, the pyramids you see in Teotihuacan, very similar to that as well.
Okay.
I mean, same concept. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Definitely.
Oh, and look, the serpents, the twin serpents, they're not only in the ball court, but they're also right here.
This is the Pyramid of the Sun here, and this is a position from the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent here at the bottom. And you have this is the Avenue of the Dead running through Teotihuacan. And the
Dude,
reason I
come
bring this
on.
the reason I bring this up, all right, is you can see these angles exactly the same way. Okay, let me put it to you
Is that
this way.
9 degrees? Tell me it's 9 degrees.
Yes. And
Oh.
the okay, no, it gets better. It gets better. The issue here is that the exact same angles for when the summer solstice rises in Teotihuacan. Now realize this is a big city, okay? This is a gigantic circular city. Circular city. Okay, you getting where I'm coming with this, all right?
Like a
Okay.
disc.
Okay. So let me show you something. This is the Pyramid of the Sun, and you have
Okay.
from off the edge right here matches up exactly to where the summer solstice rises in that location. All right. Yeah, 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 perfectly off the
No.
Pyramid of the Sun. Now, is it the same 6-degree angle? No, because it's in a different location further south, all right? So the angle is going to be slightly different, obviously, all right? But here's the interesting part. What becomes obvious, you start looking at these calendrical systems between Mississippian culture and Mesoamerican culture. It looks like Mississippian culture didn't understand the fact that if you brought the same calendrical system up north, that they had to change the angles, all right? So there seems to be a mistake in how they did it that was the same mistake consistently over time, all right, that reflected the Mesoamerican version, all right, and then finally occurred to them, oh no, we have to like make this for our time, our area, our location, because we're below the, they didn't know that the Tropic of Cancer, but we're above the Tropic of Cancer, so therefore we have to angle this for our position to be able to grow corn and worship the corn god, whatever else. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what kinda happened there. All right, and you
Dude,
see this yeah,
come
this
on.
and I have yeah, this is every one of these, they line up perfectly. You have that plaza, that 9-degree off, that's a perfect due north from the top of the pyramid of the feather serpent straight up to this position was directly in front of the pyramid of sun, lined up perfectly due north, all right, the way it's set up. And then from that position outward, you have the position of the summer solstice. That's why they're aligned the way they are. Not some esoteric craziness or whatever else that you hear from all this crap. It's just that simple. It's literally just that simple.
Right. I mean, why would you expend so much energy on something that doesn't have at least some sort of practical purpose, even if it is as intangible as something like this? But really, it is tangible because it's math.
Well, the whole city, yeah, it's the whole city was set up to be a calendar, basically. The city was lined, and it's not that that's not unique, honestly, because European cities did something very similar. Right, when they lined up, they created aspects. They'd have central point locations for churches, whatever else, on certain
Right.
lines to make sure that it's all angled certain ways, and they could use certain locations and shadows to figure out what time of the year it is, whatever else. They used very similar concepts. It's
Right.
just the whole city was planned out this way to do it that way. That's what's going on. All right.
Good Lord.
Now
Good
that's
Lord.
going to be the end of my PhD dissertation right there when I bring that out and eventually talk about it and have them
Okay.
all gang up on me and say, "No, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong." Okay, that's what's going to happen to me, and have to fight
Right.
with them over that issue. But that's the but there is no denying the aspect of how perfect that due north actually is from the top of the temple of the feathered serpent to directly in front of the pyramid of the sun. Perfect straight up dead north. All right. And then you have that angle off the pyramid sun, which marks directly to the summer solstice. There's no doubt in my mind that's what's going on. That's why they did it. So they have that calendrical system built into what they're doing roughly, what, 2,100 years ago, all right? 2,100 years ago, so they could know exactly when the summer solstice is, so they can grow the fucking corn.
If you could give me a paragraph that I should draw from for a title, if that makes sense, like in the sense that the biggest synthesis of your idea, like
The
so that
biggest
I
sense
could
of my idea is there's a direct connection between Mesoamerica and Mississippian culture, and it's built within the calendrical systems, or both a shared calendrical system.
Okay, perfect.